The lights hit the stage. The camera zoomed in. Denzel Washington leaned forward in his chair, fists gently pressed together, eyes locked on the monitor. Then the words hit him, loud, raw, and replayed across every network. Some people may be born here, but that doesn't mean they belong here. It was Donald Trump's voice. His usual confidence was there, but this time the comment struck deeper. Because the crowd he was speaking to, cheering, laughing, was reacting to a conversation about Black Americans. The studio audience froze. Denzel's face tightened. You could almost hear the silence between heartbeats. Jimmy Kimmel tried to steer the segment back, but Denzel raised a hand, just enough to stop the moment from slipping past. "Roll that back," he said, voice low but shaking with weight. They did. The clip repeated. This time the words felt heavier. Then, in a voice that didn't need a microphone, Denzel spoke. "I was born in this country. I've bled for it, maybe not on a battlefield, but in the streets, in the stories, in the work. I've carried its contradictions in my bones. So when someone questions if I belong, I take that personally." The audience erupted, not with applause, but with silence. Respectful, stunned, almost reverent. Kimmel leaned back, unsure if he should intervene. Denzel wasn't done. "This isn't about politics. This is about dignity, identity, history. And let me tell you something, when someone who's never lived that struggle dares to decide who gets to stay, then we're already off track." The clip spread like wildfire, and Trump's camp? They stayed quiet, for now. But that night, the internet crowned a new quote king. "Born here, bled here, I stay here." The next morning, every major outlet was on fire. Denzel Washington claps back at Trump live, read CNN's headline. "I bled here, Denzel's fiery defense goes viral," echoed MSNBC. Even Fox News, usually unshaken, couldn't ignore it. Actor Denzel Washington slams Trump over deportation remarks. And what started as a single moment on late-night TV had exploded into a full-blown national conversation. But while the media dissected his words, Denzel stayed silent. No tweets. No interviews. Just the clip, and its meaning, doing all the work. Until someone decided to poke the bear. On Truth Social, Trump fired back. "Denzel's always been a good actor. But he's no patriot. Just another Hollywood liberal crying on cue." That post went viral for all the wrong reasons. Within minutes, Denzel's name began trending again, but this time, it wasn't just about his quote. It was about the line that had been crossed. The studio where the original interview happened, Jimmy Kimmel Live, reached out immediately. "He wants to come back," Kimmel asked his producer. But Denzel didn't wait for an invite. He showed up. Backstage, crew members exchanged nervous glances. No one knew what he was going to say. Not even Kimmel. As the cameras rolled again, Denzel walked on stage, not with rage, not with showmanship, but with the cold, still weight of a man carrying a cause on his shoulders. He sat down slowly, looked into the camera, and began. "You want to talk patriotism? Let's talk receipts." That line alone froze the internet again. Because when Denzel said receipts, everyone knew, he wasn't just talking. He was about to bring names, history, and truth. And Trump's team? They weren't ready for what was coming. Denzel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The studio went completely silent as he leaned forward, his eyes locked with the lens. It wasn't a performance, it was a reckoning. "Let's get one thing clear," he began. "I didn't rise through this country because it was handed to me. I earned every inch of ground I stand on. My grandfather picked cotton. My father cleaned churches. I bled here. My people bled here. And now you want to talk about deporting us?" The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just listened, frozen, like America itself had stopped breathing. Jimmy Kimmel shifted awkwardly in his seat. Even he wasn't ready for what this moment had become. "I've done films that honored this country. I've visited troops. I've spoken in prisons, in schools, in neighborhoods you wouldn't walk through with a camera crew," Denzel continued. So when a man with 5 draft deferments and 0 service says I don't belong, he better check who built the floor he's standing on. Twitter exploded. Hashtag I bled here. Hashtag Denzel vs. Trump. Hashtag born here stay here. People weren't just watching anymore, they were rallying. Clips from the segment flooded social media. Young activists shared it. Veterans weighed in. Black leaders called it one of the most important statements since MLK. And while Trump's team scrambled to contain the PR disaster, Denzel sat back in his chair, looked at Kimmel, and said, "You know what bothers me most? It's not that he said it. It's that so many nodded along." That line hit like a hammer. Because Denzel wasn't just confronting Trump. He was calling out a system, a silence, a complicity. And across the country, millions of Americans, black, brown, and white, felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Truth, spoken without fear, with spine. This wasn't just a celebrity moment. It was a cultural quake, and it was far from over. The camera cut to Jimmy Kimmel, who looked like he didn't know whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. But before he could speak, Denzel leaned in again, this time quieter, deadlier. "You want to talk about borders?" he asked, staring through the lens like he was addressing Trump himself. "Let's talk about the lines that were drawn around our neighborhoods. Redlining. Mass incarceration. The so-called war on drugs. We've been deported spiritually long before anyone suggested it physically." A woman in the front row gasped. A man in the back stood up, fists clenched at his sides. Denzel wasn't just speaking anymore, he was slicing through history like a scalpel, peeling back the polite lie that kept America comfortable. He turned to Kimmel, his voice lower now. "When he says, 'Make America great again,' I want to ask, for who? When exactly was it great for the folks who looked like me? My father couldn't even vote freely. My mother got called the N-word on her way to work. You think you can deport people like that?" The studio was absolutely locked in. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. And that's when Denzel dropped the line that would be quoted for the next decade. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm not a guest in my own house." Thunderous applause broke out, not out of entertainment, but out of release. Out of finally hearing someone say it. No script, no rehearsal, no PR filter. Across the internet, the quote went viral instantly. Celebrities reposted it. Athletes wore it on t-shirts. Civil rights leaders called it the defining statement of our time. Meanwhile, Trump's team was in chaos. A new hashtag had already begun trending. Hashtag not a guest. In one night, Denzel had turned a studio chair into a podium, a talk show into a pulpit, and a cultural moment into a movement. But he wasn't done. Not even close. "America needs to decide," he said, "whether it wants to be a country of slogans, or a country of soul." Silence. Then standing ovation. And backstage, someone whispered, "Trump's gonna tweet any minute." But Denzel? He just took a sip of water and waited. By the next morning, the internet was ablaze. Every news outlet had Denzel's words on loop. "I'm not a guest in my own house" had become more than a quote, it was a cultural detonation. Fox News tried to spin it. "Hollywood elite attacks president over immigration," one anchor smirked. But that take didn't land. The footage was too raw, too honest. Even conservative viewers were split. Some nodded in silence. Others changed the channel, but not before hearing it. And then came the tweet. At 6:12 a.m., Donald Trump posted, "Denzel is a great actor, but clearly he's been acting too much. Maybe someone should remind him who built this country." That tweet was a mistake. Within 5 minutes, Denzel was trending again. But this time, even louder. Comments poured in. "We built this country with our hands, our backs, our blood." He really said who built this country to Denzel? Tell that to black veterans, Trump. Denzel, true to form, didn't tweet back. He didn't need to. Instead, that evening, he appeared at a community fundraiser in Harlem. No cameras. No crew. Just him and a few hundred people sitting in a church basement. But someone recorded part of it on their phone, just enough to catch one line. "We're not here because we asked to belong. We're here because we built the damn foundation." That shaky footage went more viral than any studio video ever could. Celebrities reposted it. Protesters chanted it. It became a chant at high school basketball games and political rallies. Meanwhile, White House aides scrambled. Trump's team debated whether to escalate the feud or let it die. But Trump wasn't one to back down. He scheduled an unscripted appearance on Hannity, hoping to swing public opinion back. But what he didn't know was, Denzel was already booked on Colbert. 2 stages. 1 message. A nation holding its breath. And Denzel? He was just getting started. As the lights dimmed on The Late Show, Stephen Colbert walked onto the stage with a smirk only half masking the weight of the moment. "You've seen the tweets, you've seen the headlines, but now, you're about to hear from the man himself." The audience erupted. And then, he walked out. Denzel Washington. Not in a tux. Not with a team. Just him in a black sweater, hands in his pockets, the walk of a man who had nothing to prove but everything to protect. He sat down. Colbert tried to ease into it. "Denzel, I gotta ask. You've been called many things over the years, actor, icon, troublemaker." Laughs from the crowd. Denzel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Let me stop you right there, Stephen. Trouble's not something I start. It's something I respond to." Silence. Colbert paused, then nodded. "Fair." Then came the real moment. "What hit you hardest about Trump's comments?" Denzel looked off stage for a beat. The ignorance. The willful blindness. The idea that Black Americans are still viewed as temporary guests in a house we built brick by brick. "That's what hit me," he continued. "My grandfather fought in World War II, came back to a country that told him he didn't belong. My father paved roads in the South so others could drive through states that wouldn't serve him coffee. So when a man who's never served a day, never bled for anything but ego, tells people like me to go back, that's when I stand up." The audience didn't applaud. They stood. Spontaneous, silent, unified. Colbert leaned back, visibly moved. "You just shut down every argument in 30 seconds. Denzel's reply was instant, not shutting it down. "I'm opening it up. To truth." At that very moment, #BuiltHere stayed #1 on Twitter. But across town, in a Fox News green room, Trump's team scrambled. Hannity's producers looked at each other. The ratings were still strong, but the mood had shifted. The wind wasn't blowing the same way. And as one staffer whispered, "We poked a man with nothing to lose, and he just set the tone." The next morning, the clip of Denzel's fiery response was everywhere. CNN ran it on repeat. MSNBC added subtitles and graphics. But it was a raw, shaky vertical video from an audience member that went viral. It caught the moment just after Denzel said, "I'm not shutting it down. I'm opening it up." To truth. That video, just 23 seconds long, hit 12 million views by noon. And it hit the Trump campaign like a gut punch. By 1 p.m., Trump's Truth Social account exploded. Another Hollywood phony pretending to care. Where was Denzel during the riots? Where was he when BLM burned cities? Talk is cheap. Denzel didn't reply. He didn't have to. Because by sunset, a retired Army vet posted a TikTok in uniform. "Denzel was in my foxhole in Fallujah." Not literally, but his words, his movies, his strength, they were there. Trump was golfing. Sit down. It shattered the algorithm. That night, Stephen Colbert dedicated a second monologue just to Denzel. "We thought we were doing a regular interview. What we got was a cultural course correction." And in a private donor dinner at Mar-a-Lago, the former president reportedly slammed his fist on the table and said, "Why does he always win the room?" Meanwhile, Denzel was nowhere near a camera. He was seen leaving a community center in South LA, wearing the same black sweater, holding a notebook. A teenage girl approached him. "You really told him off, huh?" Denzel smiled. "Nah. I just told the truth." The girl paused, then said, "No one's ever done it like that." As he walked away, someone captured a photo of the moment, Denzel, mid-step, calm, unaffected, and it became the cover of Time magazine within 48 hours. Headline, "Built here. Bled here. Still here." It was no longer a quote. It was a movement. 2 days after Denzel's confrontation with Trump shook the nation, something unexpected happened. The Congressional Black Caucus issued a rare, unanimous statement. "We stand with Mr. Washington, not because he's an actor, but because he acted when few had the courage to speak." It wasn't just words. A special session was called in Congress to address rising concerns over racially charged rhetoric. The halls of Capitol Hill, usually divided and cold, were buzzing with a single name, Denzel. But Denzel was, once again, absent from the spotlight. He was visiting an elementary school in Detroit. No cameras. No PR. Just books and stories. When asked why he wasn't speaking at the congressional session, he replied, "If the kids ain't safe, what's the point of the adults talking?" Meanwhile, Trump doubled down in a speech in Phoenix. "They say he's a hero. I say he's Hollywood. He plays soldiers, he plays kings, he plays martyrs. I build walls. I keep us safe." The crowd roared. But something was off. A woman in the front row didn't clap. She stood up, holding a sign that read, "I'd rather follow a man who acts truth than one who acts tough." Security moved to escort her out, but cameras caught her yelling. Denzel fought with words. "You fight with fear." The clip went viral. Again. By now, media outlets were calling it the Washington wave, a cultural ripple that started from one sentence and had now turned into a nationwide introspection. Back in LA, a journalist finally cornered Denzel at a book signing. "Did you mean to start a movement?" Denzel looked up and said quietly, "I meant to stop a lie." He signed one last book, handed it to a young boy with tears in his eyes, and added, "You don't have to yell to be loud." That quote trended for 36 hours. Even on Fox News. And by the end of the week, posters appeared in subway stations from New York to Chicago, minimalist black and white, with Denzel's face and just 5 words. 3 days later, the White House issued a statement. It was brief, but explosive. The president does not retract his remarks. He believes in the right of every American to voice opinions, but he stands by his call for stricter evaluations of national loyalty, regardless of race, status, or history. The phrasing ignited firestorms. Evaluations of national loyalty? News anchors froze mid-broadcast. Black veterans released a joint video. "We didn't just bleed for this country, we built it." Celebrities weighed in. LeBron. Viola. Oprah. But the nation wasn't waiting on their words. It was Denzel again. He didn't post a video. Didn't issue a press release. He walked on stage at the Kennedy Center to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award. The crowd expected the usual thanks. Instead, he took the mic and said, "I was born in this country. Raised in it. I pay taxes in it. I lost friends in wars for it. I've earned my peace here. I'm not applying for citizenship, I'm defending it." The audience held its breath. He continued. "You want to measure loyalty? Then tell me where your footprints are. Show me the blood. Show me the bridges you held together when they were breaking. I've walked through fire with this nation. And I'm not leaving because someone in a suit suddenly doesn't recognize the burn marks." Thunderous applause. People stood. Not just Black Americans. Veterans. Immigrants. Republicans. Democrats. The Kennedy Center crowd wasn't divided that night. Even Jimmy Kimmel said, it wasn't a speech. It was a reckoning. Hours later, Trump tweeted. Another lecture from a guy who plays make-believe for a living. Ideal in reality. He reads scripts. To which Denzel, during a Q&A with high school students the next morning, said, "I read scripts, yes. But I also write truth. And when reality gets this distorted, maybe we need a few more actors, and a few less performers." The quote trended globally. Some called it the final straw. Others, the first spark. But one thing was certain, this wasn't just about deportation anymore. It had become a war of who gets to define what being American truly means. And Denzel wasn't backing down. The morning after Denzel's words went viral, America felt different. It wasn't just another trending moment, it was a mirror held up to a divided nation. News outlets scrambled. The New York Times front page read, "Articulated rage, Denzel and the redefinition of patriotism." Cable shows spun it in all directions. Fox News claimed Denzel was inciting division. MSNBC called him a conscience in a storm. But the real conversation wasn't on TV. It was in homes. In classrooms. In churches. In barbershops. Teenagers posted clips with the caption, "I feel seen." Veterans tweeted photos of themselves in uniform, writing, "We bled here too." Meanwhile, the Trump campaign leaned in harder. A new ad aired. Loyalty Test 2025, who's in? Who's out? Faces flashed. Dark music played. Denzel's image appeared, blurred, shadowed. But instead of scaring people, it stirred something else. That same night, Denzel appeared on a surprise CNN town hall. He wasn't there to promote a movie. He was there to speak. "I'm not trying to lead a movement," he began. "I'm trying to remind a country what it promised." The moderator, clearly moved, asked, "What do you say to those who call you a radical?" Denzel's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped. "Radical? For saying I belong here? For defending my right to exist fully and freely in the land my father fought for?" He leaned in. "If that's radical, maybe the country needs a little more radical truth." The room erupted. No cue cards. No rehearsals. Just raw clarity. And then came the closing line that would be printed, posted, and repeated across the globe. "I'm not asking for a seat at the table. I own part of the house. And I'm not moving." With that, Denzel stood, removed his mic, and walked off stage. Silence. Then thunderous applause. Some called it the speech of the decade. Others called it the spark that would define an era. Either way, America was watching. And this time, it wasn't blinking. This was never about fame, followers, or the next film. This was about a truth deeper than politics, a truth carved into the soul of every American who was told they didn't belong. I was born here. I bled here. And I'm still here. If standing my ground offends you, maybe it's time to look at the ground you're standing on. Because this isn't just my story. It's our story. And we're not backing down.